Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's me, Mitch. And today, I'm going to try a little experiment here. I'm going to sous vide a ribeye. This ribeye is sitting right here in front of the camera. I'm filling up the sous vide tub right now with water. And once it's full, I haven't dry brined this steak. What I'm going to do is, there we go. What I'm going to do is salt it. Put it in a vacuum seal bag and put some butter in with it. So basically, I'm going to sous vide the steak, salted on both sides, not too much, not that much. And I'm going to sous vide it at 128 degrees for a couple hours. I'm going to stick it in the WeVac bag. There we go. And I'm going to take a couple of pats of butter and just stick it in there with the steak. And of course it'll melt in the sous vide. And maybe infuse some of this butter into the steak itself so that when I sear it in carbon steel, we'll see if that noticeably affects the flavor and the texture or the sear or any other aspect of it. So let's go vacuum seal it. I just have my vacuum sealer set up over here so I don't have to move it around a lot. Go ahead and turn it on. Open the lid. Turn the power on. Set it to a medium-sized bag. Put it in here. And this, I think, is a pretty convenient spot for it if I just plan on using it once in a while. If I'm doing a big batch of, like if I just went out and bought 100 pounds of meat, I'd put it out in the center of the counter. It's not hard to slide. But I think that while it's doing that, I'll move the sous vide over to the counter here. And what you're looking at right now is about the total amount of prep time necessary for this meal. I will set the immersion circulator here for 2 hours and press start. And it's running now. And the vacuum sealer is telling me that it's done. There is my steak with the butter all vacuum sealed in there, and as soon as this gets warm, that butter will melt and hopefully it'll find its way around the entire steak. Next time, if it does, maybe I'll put some on both sides. We'll see. Just experimenting. So we will shut off the vacuum sealer, take this around, put it in the sous vide, and between the time it takes to heat up the water here and the time to cook the steak, we'll come back in about 2.5 hours and we'll sear this thing off. So that's it. That's it. It is prepped. I'll have 2 minutes of searing and I'll have my dinner. That wasn't too bad. So we'll come back when I'm ready to sear this thing off in the carbon steel pan. We'll see how it finishes up.
2 hours later.
Okay, sous vide is done. And we're going to take it out of the water bath, and I see the butter running down inside the plastic. That looks like a good sign. And we will open the bag. The first thing that you want to do before you sear a steak that's been sous vide, you want to heat up the pan, put the butter, bacon grease, or tallow, or whatever you're going to use in it, and then you want to blot off the steak, because it'll sear better when it's dry. This thing seems like it's pretty tender, which is good, so we're going to wait. Let the steak sit there until the pan heats up. Nice thing about carbon steel is it heats up pretty fast. Use a digital thermometer like this to check the temperature of the pan. It's coming up 345, 350 degrees. You want a good hot pan to sear, but I start out with the edges. So once it gets to about 400 degrees, I start searing the edges. Take our steak. Wow, this thing feels very tender. And we'll start searing the edges. Boy, that looks mighty good. So now we'll just leave it go for about a minute. This is still my favorite way to cook a steak. You can't overcook it because the temperature in the immersion circulator, or sous vide, won't let it ever get hotter on the inside than the temperature of the water around the bag. And in this case, 128 degrees, which is a nice medium rare. You don't sear it real long, so you're not going to really cook the inside of the steak while you're searing it. You'll just crisp up the edges. So let's turn it, and we've got a nice looking crust on that side. We'll let it go a minute or a minute and a half on that side, and it's ready to eat. Now, I salted it before I put it in the vacuum sealed bag with the butter, so it doesn't need any additional seasoning now, and we just throw it over there on the board, and we're eating. So you really don't make a big mess cooking a steak this way. It doesn't take a lot of time. It is my favorite. And I'd say more than half the time when I cook a nice ribeye, which is my favorite, or a New York strip, which is my second favorite, this is the method that I use. You can flip it a couple times during this sear. That's okay. But that's pretty well getting on done there. So turn off the heat. Put the steak over here on the cutting board. Make it quiet. And come around here to the dining part of this little adventure. And we'll see what we got. Now, when you get done cooking a steak, normally it's going to be a lot hotter on the inside. The temperature on the inside will still continue to come up, but this way, the steak never got real hot in the center. So it's not necessary to wait 5 minutes or let it rest 5 minutes. You can pretty well get started on it right away. So let's cut right across the middle of this thing and see what we have. Look at that. Look at that. That is exactly the way I like it, and that's how it comes out every time. And if you notice that the temperature across the whole middle of the steak is fairly constant and even, and the only place where it's darkened is right at the edges where you did the sear. So that looks great. That looks delicious. Let's taste a piece of this. That's my favorite part right here. God, that's fabulous. That is fabulous. This is one of the best parts of being a carnivore. So I'm going to finish my dinner. If you've never made a steak this way, you just can't mess it up. Even the worst cook who's never made a steak couldn't help but have it come out this way with the sous vide and short sear method of finishing it off. And you end up with steakhouse, if not better, quality steaks from Sam's Club, not even prime, choice beef, and it's fabulous. So I'm going to finish eating my dinner here, my second meal of the day. You can take the rest of the day off and eat meat.